I want to thank my mom and my pa for being an example of true love and what commitment is, and for having the courage and the confidence and the discipline.
They are the center of our family. I mean, I look at all the grandkids, and mom and pa are just the best. They've stuck it out.
What's left of Kurt Russell's fortune has his family in tears. The same movies that nearly destroyed him now pay his grandchildren's college funds, and the woman he never married became his greatest investment. After 6 decades of silence, discipline, and sacrifice, his empire stands on something Hollywood can't buy. But what did it cost him? And why does the truth break hearts? Join us as we find out what Kurt Russell's fortune is making his family cry. $200 million fortune. At 74 years old, Kurt Russell holds an empire that sneaks up on you. His personal wealth sits somewhere between $100 and $120 million. When you add Goldie Hawn, their fortune rises past $200 million. The strange part stings a bit. The very films that made him wealthy almost destroyed his career. Early 1980s, The Thing arrives in theaters. Critics tear it apart. They call it vile. They call it soulless. The studio loses around $20 million. Kurt sits alone in a theater after the premiere, lights turning on too quickly, air smelling like burnt popcorn and disappointment. His name fades from the screen quicker than people rushing for the door. That night, he becomes poison at the box office. Jump ahead to the middle of the 2020s. That same film now sends more than $1 million a year to his bank from streaming. The movie that once crushed him now pays for his grandchildren's schooling. Those critics who mocked it now seem like they missed the whole point. Big Trouble in Little China was called a failure too. Escape from New York did not do well either. Every so-called flop planted a seed that took years to grow. Patience built his wealth, not good luck. His land tells the same story. He once bought the Rogers Mountain Ranch in Colorado, over 1,000 acres of pines and fresh mountain air. He built a timber lodge close to 10,000 square feet, rising tall against the Rocky Mountains. 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a wide sweep of snowy peaks where elk wander at sunrise. He never cared about measurements on paper. After his father, Bing, passed away in the early 2000s, Kurt hid there for weeks. He fixed fences with scraped fingers, repaired saddles inside a barn smelling of leather and hay. His heart was heavy, yet he kept working. Every nail he hammered into frozen ground felt like a quiet talk with the man who raised him. They sold that ranch years later for nearly 10 times what they paid. Not because he was some strategic investor. It held value because he built a place with heart. Their home in Pacific Palisades shares that warmth. They bought it in the early 2000s for a little over $4 million. Now it holds a value well over $20 million. White doors open to sunlight and eucalyptus trees. A bright pool reflects calm California skies. Family drops in all the time. Kate Hudson still joins for dinner. Oliver comes without warning. Wyatt brings his children. The house breathes like a living thing. Kurt keeps vintage cars stored away from the spotlight. A Chevy from the mid-1950s. A Blazer from the early 70s that once drove him to the Escape from New York set. A Bronco. He still services himself, proud hands steady. He flies planes, too, old ones, over small California airfields. Sometimes he helps Wings of Hope, a group that flies medical support to distant places. Just a man who likes the sky. His work numbers sound massive. More than 70 films across 6 long decades. Career earnings close to $90 million. In the 1990s, he earned close to $15 million for one movie. Today, he earns a few million for each role. With Goldie, their assets still stand above $200 million. Yet money never holds the real meaning. In the mid-20s, Kate Hudson accepted a major award that raised over $1.3 million for mental health in entertainment. She cried and thanked her mom and her pa, not stepfather. Pennsylvania. That is when it becomes clear his wealth lives in his family, in children laughing around a table, in programs, helping kids feel whole. Every stumble he faced became a stone in something strong and true. But where did that discipline come from, and at what price? Stolen childhood and the dream that died in the dirt. March 17, 1951, Springfield, Massachusetts. A boy named Kurt Russell stepped into a world that never let him play in peace. While other children chased fireflies and skinned their knees, he learned lines under lamps hot enough to scorch floors. Stardom did not gently invite him. It pushed him with the sharp edge of ambition. His father, Bing Russell, carried quiet steel inside him. A one-time baseball player turned Western actor, he never believed in ease. His mother, Louise Julia, danced through life with grace, while Kurt kept trying to make sense of any of it. When he turned 6, the family packed their car and drove west to California, chasing a dream always a few steps away. In Thousand Oaks, he discovered work long before he knew why it mattered. He kept that lesson close: discipline over comfort. Earn everything, even affection. By 11 years old, he worked steadily on the travels of Jamie McFeeters beside his father. Then Walt Disney noticed the quiet kid with a thoughtful stare. The year was 1962. Disney signed him as the studio's final contract actor before the filmmaker died in 1966. That kind of pressure crushes most children. The last boy Walt Disney believed in, the final gamble of a man who built dreams for a living. Kurt smiled for America. The country saw him as the clean-cut kid, bright-eyed, polite, steady. He played the boy next door in Follow Me Boys, the clever student in the computer-wore tennis shoes, and the dreamer in the barefoot executive. Before he was even 20, he'd lived half his youth on studio lots under painted skies and fake sunshine. Everyone knew his face. Disney made sure of that. But behind the lights, something small inside him went quiet. The more the cameras adored him, the less he recognized himself. Baseball became the place where he could breathe again, the sound of the ball connecting with the bat, the sting in his hands, the smell of dirt and grass. That was real. No script, no retakes, just rhythm and motion. He wasn't a movie star there. He was another kid chasing a line drive, sweating through his cap, trying to earn his spot. The field became church, and the game, his way back to himself. At 18, he joined the California Air National Guard. It wasn't for attention or headlines. He wanted order, something honest and unfiltered. Mornings started cold and colorless. He'd stand on tarmac with breath fogging the air, the world stripped of illusion. The uniform was heavy, the boots stiff, but the discipline grounded him. No makeup chairs, no applause, just rules, sweat, and purpose. It was the first time he felt the edges of manhood closing in, not through fame, but through effort, through the kind of work no one claps for. The boy the world thought they knew was learning how to be still, how to serve, how to disappear long enough to find out who he really was. Then the 70s arrived, and Hollywood shut its doors. The clean-faced Disney kid fit nowhere. He grabbed what he could, a part in Gunsmoke, westerns, pilots nobody picked up. His old trophies sat like ghosts in a quiet apartment. Baseball called again. He joined the minor league system for the Angels. No spotlight, just sun and sweat. Until a swing in his early 20s stole everything, a pop in his shoulder. Doctors said his career was over before it began. He sat alone in that locker room feeling not failure, but emptiness, purpose ripped away. So he walked back into film. Small roles, hard years, no applause, then a call in 1979. Director John Carpenter wanted him to play Elvis Presley. A risk, possibly a miracle. Kurt did not mimic. He understood the loneliness of a man adored yet unseen. Every stolen part of his childhood poured into the performance. Critics finally looked again. An Emmy nomination, a man reborn. His youth had never been stolen. It had been invested, and Hollywood paid him back with interest. He stood taller than ever before. Since empires aren't built alone, and love exacts its own price, how much will it cost him? When love costs everything. 1979, on the Elvis set, Kurt Russell met Susan Hubley while she played Priscilla. and he stepped into the skin of the king. Between scenes, they laughed, shared little secrets, and hope took root. They married fast. In the year 1980, their son, Boston Oliver Grant Russell, arrived, turning their fast Hollywood lives into mornings filled with coffee, baby giggles, and messy scripts scattered beside toys. They dreamed of growing old in one quiet home, far from flashing cameras. Friends thought they were proof that love could survive in a loud town, though success rarely sits politely. Kurt's career jumped higher in the early years of the 1980s with Escape from New York. Calls came, roles came, money followed. Season's phone stopped ringing. The balance they once held slipped away. Conversations thinned. Work pulled them to opposite ends of the world. They cared, yet caring felt heavier every month. He later said, "You believe love will carry everything until the work you love starts taking pieces of it." Some nights they shared rooms, but not comfort. Love turned into effort. Effort faded into quiet. 4 years after the wedding, in 1983, they signed divorce papers calmly. Season stayed in the house where Boston learned to crawl. Kurt made sure she had everything she needed. Calm mattered more than who owned what. He moved into a smaller place where footsteps and silence sounded too loud. Weekends became long drives with toys beside him and guilt riding close. He showed up for baseball, bedtime stories, and every moment he could grab. Season said they were not enemies, just no longer each other's home. The lesson hurt, though he stayed soft. He learned patience and how to keep loving through distance. Then, fate pushed another door open. The swing shift set. Goldie Hawn, already twice married and twice heartbroken, raised Kate and Oliver with fierce independence. She knew fame could make tenderness feel unsafe. Kurt arrived with his own quiet ache, a broken marriage behind him, a son he adored, and a career still demanding everything. They had met once long ago during the one and only, genuine, original family band when she was 21 and he was 16. This time, the spark hit different. He joked clumsily about her figure. She laughed like sunlight breaking through, not lightning, recognition. They danced at the Playboy Club until morning. Two people who had been pretending they needed to be perfect. Their love formed through action. Pancakes on Sundays, renovation dust, the school runs with 3 kids. Kurt moved into her half-finished home and simply became the man who stayed. Kate Hudson later said he showed her what real love looks like. In 1986, their son Wyatt arrived, and laughter filled rooms that once held doubt. They chose each other every day without rings or promises on paper. Goldie said, "Love keeps people together, not documents." Decade after decade, they proved her right. They held on through slammed doors, hard nights, and headlines waiting for them to fall apart. They stayed because staying mattered. But staying requires more than love when the body starts sending bills. Immortality demands payment. Kurt Russell built a career on grit rather than shortcuts. Hollywood never handed him stardom wrapped in velvet. He earned every cheer with nights of bruises, blood, and blunt hope. Each role demanded a piece of his body, and he kept giving until the cost reached his bones. Kurt first charmed America on Gilligan's Island, then landed his breakthrough leading the film Elvis, which reshaped his career. Fame looked glorious from the outside, yet the grind behind it weighed heavily. He embraced rugged characters that demanded real punches and dangerous stunts. No bubble-wrapped double carrying the load. Kurt wore the danger himself. Movies like Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from New York, Backdraft, and Tombstone shaped his legacy. He played tough men struggling to survive storms, gunfire, and evil. Audiences adored every fight scene and daring escape, unaware that each one quietly damaged his body. Kurt refused fear. Cameras rolled, and he delivered, no matter the risk. The industry did not always repay his sacrifices. His film The Thing shocked critics with its horror, sparking harsh insults that wounded his momentum. Although years later, fans would hail it as a genius, the delay cost him opportunities. Kurt learned that success could turn to silence overnight. He kept working anyway, determined to stay relevant without begging for the spotlight. Physical pain became a shadow stitched to his every movement. He endured slipped discs, torn tendons, and wrecked joints. Doctors warned him repeatedly. He did not stop. Fame faded for moments, yet he kept returning like a warrior refusing surrender. Television softened some blows. Netflix projects helped steady his finances during quieter stretches of film offers. Rumors spread online that Kurt was finished. Comment sections buzzed with claims his best days were behind him. The criticism stung, not because he doubted himself, but because he had bled too much to be dismissed. Kurt's personal life carried the brightest comfort. Goldie Hawn, the love of his life, represented his safe harbor away from harsh lights. Their blended family filled his world with laughter and purpose. When one of their children pursued acting, Kurt guided with what he learned the hardest way. Talent means nothing without grit. Time eventually demanded its payment. Years of punishment tore his hip apart. Doctors insisted on reconstructive surgery. Kurt agreed, but the procedure sparked dark whispers that he would never step on a set again. Fans panicked, imagining the end of his career. Kurt simply focused on healing. Now he returns stronger, calmer, and wiser. He accepts that every scar tells a story only he could write. Kurt Russell never needed to prove he is a legend. His body already carries the proof. His spirit keeps the rest. He survived Hollywood's shifting tides and still stands unbent. That is the real headline. The man who refused to quit is far from done. Will his fortunes be measured in what he built or in what remains? What remains when the noise is gone? Time always keeps its oldest promise. Everything we hold dear will take one day. The call came quietly one afternoon in 2003. Kurt was in Colorado, mountains washed in gold by the setting sun, when he heard his father, Bing Russell, was gone. To the world, Bing was a familiar face, the warm deputy from Bonanza, the man who built a minor league baseball team out of grit and hope in Portland. But to Kurt, he was everything solid in his world. The compass that kept him steady. The one who taught him that real success isn't about applause, it's about holding on. Bing's last fight was with cancer, the kind that takes its time, leaving a hush behind. Kurt didn't cry where anyone could see. He never does. Instead, he drove alone to the ranch, walked into the stables, and stood there for hours, surrounded by the smell of hay and pine, light slanting through the wooden slats, the same way it had since he was a kid. He taught me how to fall and how to stand again, Kurt said later, his voice small. When he left, it felt like the ground went with him. Goldie would sometimes find him sitting outside long after the sky went dark, staring into the mountains, whispering stories to the wind. Grief didn't crush him. It carved him into something truer. "My dad gave me the blueprint," he said once. "It was up to me to keep building." Later, another chapter closed. His mother, Louise, passed in 2021. She'd lived more than a century, a dancer to the end, light steps, quick laugh, always the rhythm that held them together. Her passing wasn't a shock this time. It was gentle, like a song fading out. "She didn't leave," Kurt said. "She just danced her way out." Her death didn't wound him. It humbled him. It reminded him that even the longest lives end in peace, not tragedy. After that, he slowed down, cooked more, read more, held on tight to the small things that time tries to steal, but time never stops taking. Friends began to fade, some to death, some to distance. Patrick Swayze, Robin Williams, even John Carpenter drifted into silence. Kurt carried those losses quietly, not as grief, but as medals of a life well lived. "Grief," he said, "is the price of having lived fully." He poured that truth into his family, into dinners that turned into laughter, drives through the mountains, and stories told under soft light. His homes weren't trophies. They were memories built of wood and care. Every board, every acre, he said, is a story I'm still telling for them. Now, in his 70s, he doesn't chase anything. Mornings start slow, black coffee for him, tea for her. Grandkids' laughter echoing down hallways. He once said, "You don't win against time, you learn to live with it." And maybe that's what his life became. A lesson written in calloused hands, mended fences, and the quiet act of always showing up. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Also, check out another interesting video by clicking on the link shown on your screen. See you on the other side.